At the 2024 Mining Indaba underway in Cape Town, industry giants are seeking urgent solutions to the current effects of rail freight failures. The sector continues to suffer losses worth billions as a result of Transnet's challenges to provide an efficient service. Transnet Infrastructure Manager Bessie Mabunda joins us now to expand on this. Thank you so much for your time and patience, Bessie. Let's start here. Progress with regards to the forums that government as well as Transnet has now put in place to ensure that there's an alleviation of the current impediments with regards to the logistical challenges. What is that looking like?
Good morning, and good morning to your viewers. So with the National Rail Policy that was signed in March 2022, basically it recognizes the fact that although rail has been in existence for over a century, there hasn't really been a cohesive national rail policy to guide this sector. And that secondly, as you were mentioning in your introduction, that there's been a general downtrend in terms of volumes in the recent past. And this has obviously been worsened by the fact that investment into the infrastructure has actually been inadequate for the past 5 to 7 years. So we've now embarked on this journey of the rail reform, which basically calls for a separation of the TFR business into an infrastructure business and an operations business. What this is aimed to then achieve is to basically allow for third-party access into basically whether it is the core lines, it is non-core lines, or it is the branch lines of TFR. Third parties will then be given access. My role as an IM is basically to ensure that we then have the processes put in place to basically be able to facilitate this. So what we've done up to date was basically to put together a network statement. What a network statement is basically a document that outlines the characteristics of the network, the access conditions that will be applicable to access seekers. It looks at the available capacity across the network and also additional services that will be offered that will be probably in the yards as well as in the terminals for train operating companies to be able to prepare their trains, shunting services, marshalling services, and so on. It also details the process that the third-party operators will need to follow in order to gain access. We've also been working very hard, doing a lot of benchmarking with other internationals that have actually walked a similar journey ahead of ourselves. So there's been a lot of learnings that have been gathered through that process. And that has also assisted us in putting together a proposal from a tariff methodology point of view. And we have gone through the process of calculating an initial tariff, and there's been a lot of engagement with the interim regulator, IREC, on this matter. So we are at a stage where most of the work has actually been finalized. We need to then kick off a process of public consultation. We are just waiting for a few meetings with the stakeholders just to make sure that we gather all the inputs that are required into the process before that public consultation process kicks off.
What's also important, Bessie, and what industry giants want to know is timelines around when exactly is there going to be efficiency or something that is similarly looking, smelling and feeling like the ports are working once again.
Yeah, so I think in terms of the rail reform itself, we definitely looking forward to in the coming financial year to actually start opening up the application processes for third-party operators to indicate their interest in terms of operating on the freight rail network. So that will definitely kick off in the new financial year as soon as the public process has been completed and the ministers have actually approved the network statement as well as the initial tariff. So that will be a go. You will appreciate that in the first year of operation, we'll still be collecting the requisite access fees that will then allow us to have sufficient investment into the appropriate levels of maintenance funding that is actually required to start bringing back and restoring the parts of the network that have suffered deterioration over time due to underinvestment as well as issues of theft and vandalism. So we are hoping that in the next financial fiscal year that we are heading into, stabilizing the infrastructure manager, and of course then getting the sufficient investment, we will then start putting in programs that actually seeks to restore the network.
As a parting shot, the private sector, are they willing to get on board? But of course it's going to come at a cost, and how much of that is being factored in?
Definitely. I mean, the rail reform, there's definitely, it is premised on the fact that there is a greater need for collaboration with the private sector. So the underinvestment that we have seen into the freight rail network, that is an issue that cannot just be solved by a Transnet by itself. So there's definitely need for private sector participation. So we are working on an investment framework that will allow private entities to actually also invest in the network. We're just formulating the mechanisms of when they do invest, what kind of benefits will then accrue to them without actually closing off parts of the network for other operators. So these are things that are really critical to actually make sure that the rail reform becomes a success.
Thank you so much for your time. Bessie Mabunda is an executive at Transnet, talking to us about the deliberations that the SOE is having at the Mining Indaba underway in Cape Town.